Sai Bao, one of the greatest Chinese spies the world has ever seen. Brother of Lim Mao and Lim Fao, there's one thing that Sai Bao craves, and that is speed. His motto, speed over family. After the conviction of kidnapping an Indian child, his goal now is to use his record-breaking speed to escape from all 16 prisons, ranging from maximum security with robots and cameras observing your every move, to one with a nice comfortable bed and great living conditions. Alright, let's go. So first, we need to collect a broom as well as other items for the Meet the Crew escape. You see, there are different ways to escape prison, just like there are different ways to slice a cake. You can use a knife, a pizza cutter, or even a shoe belonging to a homeless man. Anything is possible. So with that in mind, I proceeded to rummage through every desk within the vicinity before dashing to the courtyard and clocking in for a roll call. In order to stay clear of any suspicion, we must follow the schedule of the respective prison. I headed upstairs while all the guards were occupied and grabbed myself a radio receiver and civilian outfit. And with the lack of intellect to craft our fake equipment, it was time to read some books. And then, boom, 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 and we are good to go. As I licked my lips passing by a pig on the 2-minute mark, I dashed downstairs and burst through the double doors, Sai Bao, to escape with a final time of 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Sai Bao was a free man again, but to break out another prison, he must commit another crime. So he found himself kidnapping the same Indian child. Cougar Creek Railroad, a transport prison with little room to breathe. Guards are seen patrolling throughout the entire train, and if caught mid-escape, I'd be facing severe consequences. With no time wasted, I began piecing together the escape plan. As a single inmate, there are 2 unique ways to escape. Use a pretend carrot or a grappling hook. Both are effective, so it came down to which one I could craft first. And as I was reaching for a screwdriver, a guard came my way. It's guards coming! Oh, never mind. A surprise attack. Oh shit. Not like this. Hit me, hit me. Yes, easy. With Officer McDermott knocked out, it was crucial to strip him of all his gear. This is because guard and infirmary outfits can be worn to avoid gaining heat in restricted areas. And since mine was above 80, I had to lie low and hide the evidence so I wouldn't get attacked by the other guards. By simply minding my own business, I continued searching through every desk I came across. Then suddenly, a naked man rose from the infirmary. He's still naked? He's still naked! As I reached the 2-minute mark while searching some more, I located a crowbar along with all the other items to craft myself the grappling hook. And with that, everything was set. All I had to do was head to the roof of the car and hit escape. With a final time of 2 minutes and 44 seconds, Sai Bao hooked up onto the watchtower and casually walked away a free man. But unbeknownst to Sai Bao, his name had spread to every news station, and with a max wanted level, he was shortly arrested before capturing his 3rd Indian child. Located somewhere in the desert lands, Rattlesnake Springs stands out amongst the rest due to its unbreakable prison walls and vigilant guard towers. In addition, contraband detectors are located throughout the entire prison, making it a challenge to carry items. And the first thing I did was wake up early to search for the essential items required to craft a crossbow. And after organising my messy desk, I used my nimble legs and ran over to the morning roll call. With my hands full of items I did not need, I went over to Gabe's desk and proceeded to empty my pockets, and since I was here, I pried open Bobby's desk and found myself a roll of duct tape and a piece of string. In order to craft a crossbow, we need 2 pieces of timber, a bolt, a piece of string, 2 tubes of glue, and 1 dowel. Dowels are hard to find and require luck, so best believe I'll be screaming like a child if I don't get what I want. Nevertheless, it was time for some breakfast. So I headed over to the dining hall, but I wasn't hungry, so I just clocked in and walked away. And starting from the bottom, I swiftly grabbed any essential items I can get my hands on, before heading back next door to store them all accordingly. Since red items can be confiscated by the guards, it's important to hide them to avoid the hassle of doing the extra shit, like later on for the harder prisons. But first, I found the double. Oh, there we go. Glue double, yes! Holy shit, this might be the run. After being blessed with a double by the RNG gods, I picked up all the other items and then headed back with caution to drop the kids off into my hidden compartment. Afterwards, it was then time for a job. All I was missing at this point was an extra piece of timber and 70 intellect. So instead of lifting weights, I decided to increase my intelligence by reading some peak fiction. Once my energy levels ran out from lifting some book pages, I simply walked over to the infirmary and laid down for a quick nap. This is because sleeping recharges energy faster than sitting down, so we'll be taking full advantage of the bed next door. I then repeated the cycle of reading and sleeping until my intellect reached a number of 70. And lunchtime, perfect opportunity to replenish my energy. And thus began the process of eating some good food while listening to some yapping in the background. Once I had devoured my plate, I ran away from the guards and headed upstairs to begin searching for the last piece of timber. Obviously, the loot goblin in me had to stuff my pockets with whatever I could get my hands on. With 20 minutes left of the hour, this gave me the perfect opportunity to wander off into the more isolated areas of the prison and gather everything else but a piece of timber. Craving for some progress, I crafted the molten plastic and wad of putty in preparation for Officer Red and his red key. I then found the last piece of timber before starting my side quest, which went a little like this. Searched the showers, he wasn't there. Went upstairs, he wasn't there. Head to the dining hall, he still wasn't there, until, lo and behold, two appeared right before my eyes. I gingerly approached one from the back and somehow dealt 0 damage. What? What? I lured Officer Red into the shadows and began unleashing some malicious techniques until either of us was unconscious. I then locked in and quickly collected the mold for the key before returning it to avoid raising further suspicion. I ran back to my cell, crafted the plastic key out of the mold, and then stored it into the hidden compartment. Once Officer Red was carried away, I took a quick nap and hid underneath the covers. When everything died down and I had some free time, I was able to carefully craft the body of the crossbow, the crossbow lathe, and finally using the glue to stick everything together. With the red key and crossbow in hand, it was time for execution. First, I walked past a guard and looped around to enter the first set of double doors, then the second, and to the top where there's a red door that can only be opened using the red key. I pushed through and walked up the several flights of stairs until I reached the tippy top, and by having the crossbow in my hand, I successfully escaped with a time of 15 minutes and 27 seconds. After crashing into the barn on the other side, Cybal used his incredible horse riding skills to taste freedom once again. Taking place on the worst holiday of the year, Santa's Shakedown is a Christmas-themed prison for naughty little elves who didn't bake Santa's cookies. It's crucial to abide by the rules to prevent the warden from leaving us outside to freeze to death. And the first thing I did was clear my desk of any trash. We don't need this, we don't need this, we don't need this, and we don't need that. I ran to an inmate's desk to dispose of the trash, but was then caught red-handed. With my heat level raised to 15, I quickly emptied my pockets and headed downstairs for the morning roll call. And while the inmates were occupied, I returned upstairs to ransack the entire floor for all its goodies. Our objective is to whip up a delicious meal deal consisting of a mince pie, a bottle of milk, a pretend carrot, and a letter to Santa. Oh my god, it's so far away. I'm skipping breakfast. Fuck it. I don't care. Oh, there we go. We have a mince pie. With an item checked off the list, I decided to be an adult and clock in at the job centre. After a sudden realisation of unemployment, I quickly ran away and headed down for a quick dose of dopamine. Once I had exerted all of my energy, I took a little peek at the inside of the desk and found myself a green pen for the pretend carrot. And with that, I went for a quick nap, read some more, napped again, before getting FOMO and breaking the cycle for some bodyweight exercises. Come on, let's do some calisthenics. What? Oh, hey, oh, hi. I got back to work and eventually achieved 60 intellect, which allowed me to craft the long-awaited contraband pouch. I headed back to my cell and with my fingers itching for more, I crafted some molten plastic, an infirmary outfit, and of course, the mince pie. So we need an orange pen to make a pretend carrot, milk, and a letter. With my contraband pouch, the plan was to raid the guards' living quarters, but I got distracted and ended up cracking open some other desks instead. Oh, milk, there we go. And now I need a pretend carrot. As I nervously walked through the contraband detector, I found myself an orange pen and some toothpaste. And that was about it, really. A pretend carrot was crafted along with a wad of putty, and all that was missing at this point was a letter, which could only be obtained from the guard's desk or the pockets of guards and inmates. And since Officer Red 2 didn't have shit, I used the mode to create a plastic key. After sipping on the adrenaline shot, I sat back, relaxed and plotted my next attack. Once the target was located, I looked into the eyes of the officer and took a swing at the face. Then, after leaving the fight unscathed, I searched his pockets and found absolutely nothing of use. So I hid in the locker until 10 PM roll call before approaching some inmates for potential letters up for sale. This was when my heat level suddenly rose to 100, which caused every guard within the vicinity to take a swing at me. While the infirmary and guards outfit is good for blending in, staying close to guards with the outfit on can steadily increase our heat level. So with the chaos I created, I eventually lost sight of the guards and was able to hide everything away. And knowing I was safe, I slept with ease. The next day I got changed and continued the onslaught of assassinating guards in isolated areas. Yes man, thank you! Once my heat level died down, I grabbed everything from my desk, crafted my special letter and entered the warden's office to set up the bait for Santa. Holy shit, that took so long! And with that, Cybal TKO'd Santa Claus and stripped him of all his belongings, including his sleigh, which was hijacked for Cybal's escape. Surrounded by a deadly electric fence, Kapal Camp is designed to give a friendly shock to those who try to escape. And judging by its well-maintained facilities, those confined here are likely to remain for a very long time. Not me though, because once I cleared the unnecessary items from my desk and stored them next door, I clocked in for the morning roll call to then prep for my escape. The first step was to hunt for a lot of files and rolls of tape, as we needed to craft flimsy cutters, upgrade them to lightweight cutters, and finally to sturdy cutters to penetrate the electric fence. As I entered the next building, I made a swift 180 due to the guards inside, and proceeded to clear out the surrounding areas of all its loot, which led to storing away a lot of files and tape. With my pockets empty, I took the long way round to avoid triggering the contraband detector, and then made my way to the library for some spicy literature. 60 we go! After my first session of reading, I just sat there in silence because there wasn't a bed nearby, but got extremely uncomfortable and switched off the generator to walk through the powerless detectors, picked up some toys on the way, just to take a nap. At this point I had too much shit, so to free up room, one must read as fast as possible to enable crafting. Fuck, we need 4 more intelligence. Right, is there a bed up here? Yep, there is. Once a nap was taken and 60 hit, I first crafted a contraband pouch and sneaked into a little room to collect some talcum powder. Then headed home fast by switching off the generator again to avoid the hassle of taking the long way round. With an educated mind, I crafted myself the flimsy cutters, then lightweight cutters, and finally, the final boss of all cutters, the sturdy cutters. Also the 4-piece combo consisting of molten plastic, wad of putty, a nurse's outfit, and a screwdriver that I found next door. After avoiding the contraband detectors by the skin of my teeth, I switched off the generator again and began locating Officer Red. Officer Red, come inside! Pause. That's kinda weird. Don't do that. Since I caught Officer Red slacking, I took a swing and lured him into a quiet room where I was able to finish the job and create a mode out of the red key. Once the plastic key crafted and adrenaline sucked on, I left the room with less than 80 heat and tried to get the jobs to change my ways. However, I got told to shut up, so went to the job board instead, got a job which consisted of collecting items for some digging and planting action. When job time was over, I dropped everything and ignored taking a shower to bolt over and grab some bedsheets and pillows to craft a bed dummy. And once I tucked it into bed and organised my loadout for the final night, I did some gymnastics to burn time. When the final roll call came around, I clocked in and returned to my cell before passing through the red door. With my contraband pouch, I snuck through the detector and then switched off the generator once again. This allows escapees like myself to cut down the fence without getting shocked to death. Casually just break out of prison. Nothing to see here, officer. And we are out. Yippee! After stripping down the guard of his drip, Cybal switched on the engine and fled. Snow Way Out is another Christmas-themed nightmare where prisoners are forced to comply and work to prepare gifts for Santa's sack. Within the prison exists a money-hungry warden who views his prisoners merely as slaves for profit. After waiting patiently for the door to open, I charged out like a raging bull and quickly snatched all the good loot within the vicinity before turning up to roll call. I cleared my desk to free up room because to escape this winter prison, we need a crowbar, a plastic red key, and a pair of sturdy cutters. And once I found another file and a crowbar, I headed for breakfast, to which I had to risk my items from being confiscated just to clock in. Luckily, however, everything had returned to my pockets, so I went to read the latest piece of peak fiction. Reborn as a vending machine, I now wander the dungeon. I read that until I couldn't anymore, then fell asleep dreaming about that peak fiction. Afterwards, I borrowed a few items from my fellow inmates and returned to reading until I hit 60. This was so I could craft the flimsy cutters, the lightweight cutters, and then I was missing a roll of tape. This meant throwing on my nurse's outfit and heading up to the guards' living quarters to raid them of all their sweet belongings. My ADHD kicked in and I later instead crafted the water putty and molten plastic. Then decided to sniff out Officer Red, which proved to be quite the challenge given how the guards were moving in wolf packs. But after waiting patiently, I bonked his head and dashed inside to avoid the sniper and began raining ferocious attacks onto Mr. Red. I snatched his key along with his fit to ultimately blend in with the chaos, and then crafted the plastic red key. Returning to the original mission of locating a roll of duct tape, I searched the warden's office from top to bottom, and then continued the process of searching until nightfall, or rather until I had some tape. Since bedtime was near, I grabbed a bedsheet and some pillows for a bed dummy and... oh man, it's too late. Fuck! You see, once we enter the yellow door during lights out, we could either leave by climbing through the fence using a crowbar or by using the yellow key to unlock the door. We had either since the crowbar was reserved, so it was bedtime. The next day I went to roll call, read some books, and then decided to get as jacked as humanly possible. I have the power! Another fight has broken out, and he has knocked down 2 players. 100, here we come! 100 strength! We actually need this much strength for later on, like for one of the hardest levels in the game. So it's best to actually get some practice in. 100! After becoming an absolute beast of a human being, I traversed to the far east side of the prison, where a few guards patrolled, and began smashing through the walls with a crowbar until there was a big enough hole that I could fit through. Oh my god. And there we have it. Cybal hopped into the jet ski and then escaped with ease. HMS Orca is a big ship reinforced with tight security, ensuring that prisoners obey obediently while being shipped to their unknown destination. As soon as I was left alone, I quickly clenched my fist and sprinted out to take a swing at someone's head, which led to sheer domination over another human being. I stripped them of all their valuables except for the key, and then pressed on with my escape. However, I later got the taste of my own medicine and was struck from behind by the same man. Oh shit, I messed up! This is where I had no stamina, so I tried my best to escape the naked man by hiding in the lockers downstairs. Luckily, this was enough not to get caught, until another officer came in, which forced me to defend myself once again, or rather, run away due to the lack of energy. Again, I retreated into another locker and hid until everything died down before taking a step outside. I went downstairs, found a screw and then some tubing, which was everything I needed to fix the jet ski. Boom shakalaka. Cybal escaped in Hollywood fashion with a time of 3 minutes and 33 seconds. The glorious regime is first and foremost a circle jerk for its glorious leader, and a prison second. However, while the obsession with one man is real, so is the strict order over its prisoners. After waking up at the back of 4 AM, I decided to clear my desk and play some musical chairs to avoid raising the suspicion of my peers. Time to meet Kim Jong-un. Once I took a bow at the supreme leader, I went to work and collected the items needed for this escape. I'm thinking a grappling hook escape if we have the necessary items for it. That or a heart rate slower. With that in mind, I took a peek at breakfast, then wandered off to various locations and found some tape and a crowbar. This was enough to fill my pockets, so I went back and dropped everything off. Feeling as light as a feather, I went upstairs and took a sniff of employment. Then walked through the cafeteria and headed upstairs to read some books. The goal was to increase my intelligence to 70 so a grappling hook could be crafted. After 3 minutes of back and forth, I finally managed to leave without needing to touch a book ever again. At least for this prison. I headed north, found another crowbar, and used it to craft a grappling head, which meant all that was missing was some rope. Once I returned to my cell, I prepared my loadout and was then ready for assault. I locked my eyes onto Officer Red 2 and waited until he was alone. Then, after a missed swing, I tried again and put Officer Red 2 to sleep as soon as possible, and upon the completion of copying a key, I then made a beeline for the locker. I then headed upstairs and used the plastic key to access the desk next to the warden's office, and after finding nothing, I dropped down like Batman and decided to take a swing at the filthy criminals before finishing them off in isolation, and then doing the same to the guard. After that, I found absolutely nothing of use other than a medkit, so that was a waste of time. In desperation for finding some rope, I decided to switch teams and help the criminals pursue their passion in music. This did not work, as I was rewarded with naked men and insufficient funds for items I didn't need. My only hope at this point was to infiltrate the guards' living quarters, which ended up changing the trajectory of this escape because I found myself an ice pack. Sadly, I couldn't take my excitement further since it was lights out, so I went to bed and called it a night. The next day, I let muscle memory take over and searched the same desk that had different items due to the morning resets, and did not stop until I found the second ice pack and some tape. Once I combined them to make the heart rate slower, I strapped it onto my body and headed to the infirmary for a quick nap. This allowed Cybal to fake his death and escape with a time of 23 minutes and 14 seconds. Situated somewhere in the middle of the ocean, HMP Offshore is a prison disguised as an oil rig, where the chances of escape are low due to its limited exit routes. To leave this place successfully, high levels of creativity and expertise are definitely required. After dreaming about fishing in the ocean and riding dolphins into the sunset, I sprung out of bed and the first thing that happened was me getting swung on for whatever reason. So I retaliated with some serious ass whooping. Where the fuck you going, bitch? Once I stole the tub of bleach, I tried again and found some duct tape and timber, to which I stored away before heading upstairs for the roll call. When I went back, I was caught by guards, but I broke line of sight by hiding and continued searching for materials for a fishing rod, which is comprised of timber, a piece of string, a paper clip, and a juicy worm. We also need a plastic red tea, but that can be saved for later. After breakfast, I went down one floor and found myself a juicy worm. With a piece of string and a paper clip remaining, I realised that I had too much stuff stored away, so I picked out all of the garbage and dropped it on the floor like a scumbag. Once I clocked in for job time, I ran downstairs and made my way to the library. Fast forward to 50, I decided it was time to stretch my legs and wander off into the distance, where I found nothing of use other than a generator switch. So failing to find the remaining items, I resorted to violence in hopes that someone was carrying the items I needed. However, one must finish the job to find out. I ran out of energy, so I played the victim. Officer, help me please. Officer, help me please. Officer, help me please. Since that plan also failed, I took matters into my own hands and returned to my cell to grab some materials that would be used for the best disguise. With my identity hidden, I was able to navigate around the prison without being recognised. And after strolling about, I finally found a paper clip on the top floor, as well as a piece of string in the nurse's office. Of course, I still had to abide by the rules of the prison, so I went to the showers to take a peek at some naked men. Then it was time to read some books due to my lack of 70 intellect. Once I completed the objective, I falcon punched my way back and finally crafted a fishing rod along with some bait. For whatever reason, I emptied my pockets before assaulting a guard, probably because I was losing my mind. Still, I absorbed a good swing and some punches before unloading a barrage of kung fu madness. With the key secured, I opened my desk and grabbed the items I should have had to begin with, and then created the modes. Once everything had been returned, I went over to the final roll call of the night, then went to bed. The next day, I was surrounded by chaos for whatever reason. However, it was ignored and I followed my usual routine until suddenly I tasted the end of the baton. As I was chased into my room, I panicked and quickly emptied my pockets before accepting my fate. Naked and feeling a great sense of humiliation, I now had one goal, and that was revenge. So I grabbed the crowbar, lured Officer Red to where his screams wouldn't be heard, and began dishing out some serious bonks. As a reward, I changed into his gear, then took a quick nap to charge up. Afterwards, I grabbed my red key along with the fishing rod prior to leaving the building so that I could begin navigating my way down the several flights of stairs until I reached the bottom floor. This was because it was time to do some fishing. Once a fish has been caught, I used it as a gift to Snooty the dolphin, who happens to speak in dolphin, so to solve this issue, we must locate the book on how to understand dolphins. I dropped the key to prevent the alarm from going off and grabbed the book from nobody's desk. This led to a new objective of preparing a sweet treat for Snooty. The ingredients included flour, milk, sugar, which altogether created a delicious cake. Excited to ride Snooty, I retraced my footsteps with glee, knowing that my time at HMP Offshore had come to an end. At least I thought. Because turns out I had bugged the game. Apparently delivering a quest at the same time of the new activity could stop the game from progressing, so for me this meant resetting the run. For my second attempt, I essentially repeated the whole process of reading to 70 intellect to experiencing the same chaos within the prison. Then after everything, I finally escaped with a time of 31 minutes and 41 seconds. Holy shit, man, that took so long. Oh my god. That was so annoying. I cannot believe my game bugged out towards the end. Wicked Ward is an absolute freak show of a prison, where zombies disguised as guards patrol around every corner and ghosts of past inmates lurk aimlessly at night. It's vital to leave as soon as possible if we want to preserve our sanity. Once I had risen from the dead, I quickly organised my desk and then paid a visit next door to grab what I needed before joining the rest for roll call. I'm going to try and get a multi-tool, but if I can't, I'm just going to settle for cutters and a sturdy shovel. Based on the sheer size of this place, it's crucial to clear each floor at a time to avoid searching the same desk and wasting time, which is why I stayed on the first floor until everything was cleared. I dropped a jar of ink that later played a huge part in my escape, but first, it was time for breakfast. And now, back to checking the other desks. I snatched up what I could during breakfast time and then followed the schedule to prevent the risk of getting bombarded by flesh-eating zombies. I headed upstairs to a spooky hallway that was connected to jobs, so I froze and ran away. I tried running through the second floor to do some reading, but encountered a contraband detector and was forced to take the long way round. Right, so it's all the way up here and upstairs. Then we have a bookcase that we can use. Boom shakalaka. To 60 we go! Once I had exerted my energy, I ran over to the other side where an infirmary was present and fell asleep. Fast forward to 60, this was when I placed all of my focus on obtaining a sturdy shovel and cutters. By using the materials I had collected, I was able to start with a flimsy shovel as well as a pair of flimsy cutters. This gave me more than enough dopamine to begin the excavation of the second floor. I managed to find some talcum powder and toothpaste, which I combined to create a wad of putty. Then using the tape and metal, I upgraded my flimsy shovel to a lightweight shovel. I think we went 3 more tape to get a complete set of sturdy shovels and sturdy cutters. With that in mind, I continued where I left off and found one of the tapes, which allowed me to finalise my shovel. At this point I had too many files, yet so little tape, but everything I needed for a key, so it was time to kill some fools. I lured Officer Red Free into the infirmary, and after sending him to the Shadow Realm, I grabbed his key and followed his body to one of the beds. This was when I made the grave mistake of gifting a stolen key, which instantly triggered a prison lockdown. Oh fuck. With a max star wanted level, I tried to run away, but the dogs were too fast. Oh man, what? No! Bullshit! Shouldn't have done that. After I was sent to solitary confinement, I passed the time by peeling some potatoes and regretted my decisions. Why did I attack him in the infirmary? Fuck, that was stupid. And once time was served, I stayed on the second floor to recoup my losses until it was time for roll call. Then sleep. The next day, I crafted the items again for attempt 2, along with upgrading the cutters to lightweight. And then, while it was a close match, I came out on top. And this time, I successfully crafted the mold, then the plastic key, without raising any alarms. After 21 minutes, I found the last piece of tape, which allowed me to craft a pair of sturdy cutters. With a newly made nurse's outfit, it was time to head down one floor and walk past all the guard zombies to collect a couple of adrenaline shots. I then stored them away to free up room, crafted the bed dummy, slipped it into my bed, and collected my items to begin drilling a hole within the prison walls. After knocking down the wall using the crowbar, I acquired a block, which was very bad if found on me, so I flushed it down the toilet and walked away. And now we wait. While I waited until lights out, I sadly got the job I applied for. So I got to work by first freeing up my pockets, then crafted some trick-or-treat bags. I gave them away to whoever knocked, and just when I was about to craft more bags, my shovel got confiscated. Oh fuck, I just dropped my shovel, no! Frustrated, I spent the rest of the day reopening desks to salvage anything I could find, but ended up finding nothing of use and went to bed a very grumpy man. With the morning reset, I picked up some foil and tape for the contraband pouch and headed downstairs once again to search for my shovel in the contraband desk. Unfortunately, a guard's outfit was required, so I turned around and walked the other way. My key's going to run out. Brilliant! Brilliant! This has been such a nuisance. So I crafted some putty, molten plastic, and knocked out the guard for a new plastic key, and just when I was about to grab the outfit... FARM! Ah! I need the outfit, man! However, after a quick lie down, a sudden realization. Oh wait, I've got ink downstairs, never mind. You see, a jar of ink could be splurged onto the nurse's outfit to create a guard's outfit. And with that, I was able to search the contraband desk and not find my shovel. Wait, oh my god, no. This meant going through the hassle of crafting everything again, which took an extra 3 minutes of the run. Afterwards, I made sure everything was stored safely before returning to the job and dishing out more sweets. Once time has passed, I quit my loadout and waited until everyone was tucked into beds, then switched off the generator and headed to the visitors' room to begin chipping through the wall. After that, I used my cutters to cut a hole in the fence, and then the shovel again to knock down the final wall. Oh, see if I didn't drop my shovel the first time round, I would have finished this half an hour early. Nevertheless, Saibal walked away from his 10th prison. Thrown into a literal circus due to the overpopulation of the prison system, prisoners are forced to become performers in order to survive. As per every circus, animals are seen locked in their respective cages with old equipment scattered around. Upon waking up, I instantly brainstormed the items needed for this circus hellhole escape, then headed to roll call before working towards bringing my ideas into reality. While everyone was busy eating, I searched the desks until I was caught by one of the inmates. This caused me to flee from the scene and wait patiently until my prey took the bait. After finishing him off, I searched his pockets and continued my day. Don't ever touch me ever again, stupid idiot. I headed north for more looting opportunities and climbed onto the roof to bypass the locked doors of the warden's office. I found myself a spring and then continued playing Mirror's Edge by dashing across each cart. Once I dropped into the guard's living quarters, I grabbed a hammer and nothing else. At this point, I was missing one more spring, so I emptied my pockets and took a massive detour exploring each facility of the circus. I got to see some lions as well as a human cannon that we'll use later, but first I had to search for the desks, which had nothing I needed. I tried climbing on the roof of the building to see what I could find and was met with a locked door. So I tried to take my life, but tragically failed and continued wandering around for a spring. Give me a spring. Yes! We have everything we need. I lied, we don't have everything we need because I was still missing 60 intellect. So I read until my mind had enough before returning to my cell. Makeshift launcher, helmet, crowbar, fix, launcher, helmet, and we are away. Wait, I don't want to glitch this out, so I'm going to wait first. Right. And then we go. Boom! And with that, Saibal climbed into the cannon and waited. Pow pow pow. Saibal! As he was flying in the air, he crashed into a tree, and by wearing a helmet, he fled the scene unscathed. Packed off to the coldest corner of the Siberian tundra, prisoners are left with no choice but to work in these horrible conditions. With the wild bears and harsh blizzards, the chances of survival are next to none. But that bridge will be crossed when we get there, as breaking out to Fort Tundra is no easy task. For it, we need the multi-tool that requires a lot of brain power to make. While tedious, the job must be done, so after roll call, I began to search the left side of the building. Come on man, get lost! Fucking stupid guard. Once I gathered some of the essential items, I stored them in a safe place and then attended breakfast just to show face and brag about fasting. I headed over to the next building that had far too many contraband detectors, which was why we'd be crafting a contraband pouch after reading some books. I got up once I hit 42 and made my way to the west side of the prison for a sniff of employment. I then went to bed to charge up before continuing the task of reading to 70 intellect. Right, 15 more. Can I go up? Right, hold on. I'm pretty sure there are beds over here, right? Nope. One more cycle of sleeping and reading later, I hit 70 and walked over to do my favourite task of searching for gold and found a roll of tape. Of course, to avoid raising further suspicion, I acted like an NPC, and when the time was right, I grabbed the foil from my desk to combine it with the tape, which equals a contraband pouch. It was then time to create a flimsy shovel. The next step was finding a crowbar for a flimsy pickaxe, so after clearing out one side, I headed over to the other. This was where I found a tube of bleach and would craft a nurse's outfit to hide my identity. And now we won't get disturbed. While the goal was to find the crowbar, I ended up finalising my shovel instead and found everything else for the pickaxe except the crowbar. With half of the building still to search, I headed upstairs and only found some toothpaste for a wad of putty. So I turned back to couple it with the molten plastic and then realised I needed more timber and tape on top of the crowbar. I was fed up, so to keep things exciting, I branched out to the other areas of the prison, but didn't really find much other than a piece of timber. While inspecting the second floor of the sleeping quarters, I located some tape, and after thoroughly searching all the desks, I obtained all the timber and all the tape and 0 crowbars. So I went to bed and cried away my sorrows. The next day, I woke up a new man. And with one goal in mind, I searched the desk again and mainly found materials for a contraband pouch. So it was crafted, I guess, then upgraded. At this point, I was sick of doing the same thing over and over again. So to make a change, I decided to look for a job to make some cash. However, I got called an idiot instead. As I ran out of the building, I realised my pockets were a little heavy, so I dropped off my valuables somewhere the guards wouldn't see, and then proceeded to make cash by doing different favours. This is because sometimes the inmates might have something we need for a price. And so, together with these items, I crafted a cup of molten chocolate, which would be used to beat up Powell the bully. I snuck behind him, knocked him out, and got paid. With a pocket full of cash, I shouted at the vendor who had the crowbar for sale, but since I was still a stranger, I had to give away a banana to build trust before buying the crowbar. Yes! And finally, a pickaxe was crafted. So I made my way to where I dropped off the timber and tape and began upgrading the pickaxe to its final form. Then, by combining the two using some tape, I created a multi-tool. Next, I gathered some adrenaline shots from the infirmary, as well as crafted a bed dummy that I later slipped into my bed. I then sorted out my loadout for the hunt for Officer Green. This time Officer Red was not the target, as we needed a green key. Once aggroed, I pounded Officer Green and did everything that was required while being safe and sound within the locker. I waited until he was carried away, then adjusted my loadout again for the preparation of the actual escape. I decided to do some pull-ups to pass time, and when it was dark, I snuck through the contraband detector and hid in the library to avoid the patrolling guards. I waited until everyone returned to their cells so that I could run freely during the night without disturbance. Don't mind me, drinks on you tonight, right? Suck my balls. With a green key in hand, I unlocked the double doors and quietly made my way through the kitchen to reach the back door. I began digging a hole, and after discarding some soil, the hole was finally big enough for me to jump into. And thus began the real tedious task of digging further until a tunnel was made. Once I disposed of more soil, I pierced through the ground from above and made it out the other side. After 36 minutes and 21 seconds, Cybal somehow became a fish that grew legs and can use them to walk away. Area 17 is a secretive military base equipped with otherworldly technology and high security. Prisoners are thrown in as test subjects and will go through a series of excruciating pains like getting a job and maybe piloting a UFO. And so begins the escape that I struggled with the most. Right, for this one we need 2 keys, a cyan and a red, and then we need a civilian outfit and a security pass. I first cleared my desk of any rubbish, then dropped it on the floor to keep the guards occupied. After grabbing a comb and a toothbrush, I went over to the empty roll call before returning to ransack the rooms when no one was watching. I dropped off some of the materials for the putty and molten plastic, then continued the quest upstairs. 2 tubes of toothpaste and 1 more lighter. This was where I found most of the materials for the security pass, as well as some more toothpaste and lighters, all of which were stored away safely, and since I had cleared out all of the rooms, this meant I had to look for materials elsewhere, and with 0 coins, I had to search for a job. Which went poorly, as I was given 0 opportunities and didn't have the adequate stats to apply for jobs. I rummaged at a desk and found nothing, so I wandered and wandered, hoping to find some money opportunities to afford some toothpaste. Then, I found some, which meant I could finally read some books. Give me the power. I shortly ran out of power, so I headed south to recharge. Once I reached 60 intellect, I went over to the exercise room, only to show face and continue doing what I did best, which was disappearing and meticulously plotting my escape. After I created 2 sets of putty and molten plastic, I held on to 1 for use and waited until my prey was alone. Then, it was time to strike. Counter punch! Counter punch! Oh shit. No! 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 Unfortunately, I didn't account for the energy I had to begin with and suffered a humiliating defeat. With a crowbar and molten plastic taken, I salvaged what I could to try again. Although the chances of the guards patrolling alone were slim, I searched patiently, knowing that the opportunity would eventually arise. However, during the battle, I realised I was fighting a Dark Souls boss. Why are they so fucking hard to die? So I ran the other way and fled the scene. Once I had calmed down, I tried again by luring Officer Red 4 to a place where no one would hear or see the bonks I dished out. I created the mode, returned the key, created the plastic key, and held on to the empty security pass. By combining it with a jar of ink and a feather, we get a filled security pass. I cleared my pockets for ease of movement and began doing favours for the inmates to pass time until the desk reset in the morning. In the midst of doing a favour, I found a lighter, which meant returning to hunting down Officer Cyan. Bro, why are they all fucking going in the same direction? Come back! Eventually, Officer Cyan 2 was alone, so after knocking them out, I grabbed the key and... shit. I tried to quickly create a mode, which I failed at, so I ran in circles until I had some success. But this was short-lived as I was beaten to a pulp. Oh! Bob! Bastard, man! No, all of my fucking oh my god. Oh, I think we need to I think we need to reset. Fuck! Fuck off! Fucking bitch! Die! Die! I stripped Officer Cyan of all his belongings, then claimed them as my own. On the quest for a lighter and toothpaste, I decided to take on favours to make some coins while I searched for materials I needed. Bro, what? We did 70 to... oh my god. Why am I even doing this? Since Mama didn't raise no quitter, I had breakfast this time to recover energy until... what? What did I do? What the fuck did I do? I had forgotten my heat rises while wearing a guard's outfit, so I hid in a locker. When everything calmed down and I hit 70, I crafted the super baseball bat and took a shot at beating the bully. Afterwards, I created 2 sets of molten plastic and putty from the materials I found, then got to work snatching some keys. Officer Cyan was first, so I took him down and grabbed his key. Once the plastic key was completed, I headed home to adjust my loadout for Officer Red, and as soon as they were alone, I started the battle without realising I was low on energy. Ah, bro, man, this fucking sucks! It sucks! Why am I doing so badly? What is going on? And due to my impatience, the guards remained angry, to the point that they followed me to my cell, which forced me to accept my fate in the infirmary. I was then carried to my bed so I could be rested. Then I created another set and connected. And once the swing was blocked, I swung and retaliated and kept it rolling because I couldn't be rested. So much to craft the second time, how complicated. Nevertheless, past the infirmary, through the tight red door, into uncharted territory and down 1 floor. This was the unknown, scared, wish I was sedated. Came a prison guard, so I turned around, looked into a wall, which avoided the brawl, get jebaited. Free and into the fields where no one was seen. Had a building with a chest that I searched with keen. Bless, I found a civilian outfit, which means time to escape while looking very clean. Also, remember, I wrote this shit at 2 in the morning, so please, don't be mean. Holy shit. Fucking hell, finally. After bad-mouthing the security guard, Saibao continued until he was satisfied before walking away. Air Force Con takes place on a prison aircraft where time is of the essence, as sooner or later we'll reach our unwanted destination. This escape calls for a combination of speed and stealth, since the guards are very unfriendly. And so I waited for the perfect opportunity to strike. Oh shit, I'm gonna die here. Yes, okay. So now we have the things we need so we don't get caught, and it's time to find our items. For this escape, we could either craft a parachute with 3 pieces of rope and a bed sheet, or use a circuit board, a screwdriver, wire, and some batteries for sabotaging. With that in mind, I found a piece of rope, which meant jumping out the plane it was. I grabbed the bed sheet, and prior to proceeding with the plan, I hid in solitude to decrease my heat. Once that was barely done, I took the other way to avoid line of sight, but was still caught in action, so I panicked and ran away. After returning and prying open the desk, I found the circuit board, and at the front of the plane, I located some wire, which all enticed me to begin sabotaging the plane. At this point, either escape could be done, so I headed upstairs to see which one came first. And since the cockpit was loaded with guards, I turned the other way and minded my own business. This was when I found a battery and a screwdriver. I think we just hijacked the train to be honest. Hijacked the plane to be honest. Because we're just missing one more battery that we need, and we're done! And to the front of the plane with my new energy module. Once I arrived, I performed consecutive booms. And boom, and boom, and escape! With a time of 2 minutes and 38 seconds, Saibao remained invincible. Set in outer space where after 70 years of cryosleep, the 12-month sentence can finally be carried out. The prison is loaded with contraband detectors at every corner and is patrolled by a whopping 18 robot guards. And once I was awoken by one of them, I first checked my belongings, then rushed to roll call so that I could begin picking up the desk and throwing it at the door. This was to prevent the cameras from catching me stealing, so I did this for every room. And just like that, I could check the desk at my leisure. To escape into space, I need putty and molten plastic for a plastic key, a screwdriver or a crowbar, a nurse's outfit, a contraband pouch and a jetpack, I think. After I stored away my valuables collected from one side, I took off for breakfast. Upon my arrival, I proceeded upstairs, then traversed the metal flooring and selected a book to fuel my reading addiction. After I fried my dopamine receptors, I walked down the nearest stairs to claim a bed for recovery. Once I reached 60 intellect, I got curious and discovered some bleach, which was used to craft the nurse's outfit. I tried to leave with the foil in my hands, but was unable to because of the contraband detectors, so I left it and returned home to search the second half of the living quarters. I moved each desk to its respective position, then realised I wasted time because I had the nurse's outfit on. Nevertheless, that didn't stop me from crafting a contraband pouch, which was used to bypass the contraband detector next to the gymnasium. Fast forward to night time, I prepped some molten plastic and putty to begin the search for Officer Red. This didn't last long because I got distracted and went to grab the jetpack first. For this to happen, I had to pry and climb through the fence, then do the same thing on the other side to drop down and rummage through the desk for the jetpack. On the way out, I had to throw down a desk first before following my footsteps and leaving the room. Then it was truly time for hunting. As long as I existed, Officer Red was never safe, because once that back was turned, I was there to take it. And as I lured him closer to the red doors, I turned and knocked him out to steal his key, and instead of creating a copy, I just ran. Oh shit. Wait, it's fine. Let me leave. Oh, I forgot to get the contraband pouch, but it's fine though. Indeed it was, as Saibao used his jetpack to hover through space and into the spaceship to escape. Lock Castle is a massive medieval fortress with a complex interior, featuring tons of unique points of interest. However, surrounded by thick castle walls and armoured guards, it remains to be one of the hardest prisons to escape from. I hopped out of bed and began the quest of building a suit of armour and sword for this castle escape. This includes gathering a lot of materials, a lot of intellect, and one too many keys. That being said, once I stepped in and out of roll call, I began the excavation process on one of the many floors of the prison, specifically the second floor living quarters. Afterwards, it was time to navigate around this massive prison and head down the floor to increase my brain skills to 70. This of course was a big number to reach, so by walking past the guards and through the door, I was able to take a break in a conveniently placed bed. As I was tempted to break my fast, I locked in and discovered a grappling head as well as some rope, which led me to a grappling hook, but don't have the intelligence. Brilliant. And since I couldn't resist touching some desks, I let my urges take over, which led to me acquiring the handle for the sword. When job time was here, I dropped my valuable items somewhere safe to prevent the alarm from going off. And now grab all of our materials. Do not flush them. Are the contrabands down here? Okay, yes, they are. So I need to store these items back. Oh my god, I have no space. With my desk filled to the brim, I used one of the narrow rooms for storage. And then we go back to read some more. And when I was just shy of 70, might as well just sit down for a bit. Once I finished exercising the mind, I headed up to the 3rd floor to exercise the body. Oh, and there's a war going on. Wait. Any good stuff on yous? Naturally, trouble was bound to happen in a room full of unemployment, so I stayed away from that and continued searching for good stuff instead. This time round, I found 2 rivets, a toothbrush and talcum powder. Rivets are essential for most armour pieces, and by using what I had, I was able to craft a chest plate for the time being. Next, I crafted some putty as well as the long-awaited grappling hook, which could be used to scale the elevated areas of the prison, and by opening the chest, I found a pair of shoes for the glaives. Hungry for more progress, I went upstairs to locate the other areas that required a grappling hook, and found myself a lighter. On the 3rd floor, I tiptoed around until I found a sweet spot, then found a lighter again and talcum powder. Since my desk was full, I dropped them on the floor to free up room before grabbing the necessary items to craft the second piece of armour, the makeshift glaives. Now I need feather and gloves and more plates. But before doing that, I crafted the nurse's outfit, then picked up the items on the floor to complete the 2 sets of molten plastic and putty. My first victim, Officer Red, so I equipped the iron bar and sent his soul to the Shadow Realm. I stole his key and outfit, and once the usual process had been completed, I ran away to craft the plastic key, then recharged my energy. Unfortunately, I was caught slacking, which meant I had to fend for my life to prevent my items from being confiscated. I dashed away to create separation before failing miserably to hide my key. This was when I made the decision to flee from the scene, but was tragically cornered and put to rest. No, and I've lost my key, no. Should have just dropped the key. As I realised roll call was ending, I quickly shot up, and while I missed it entirely, I was saved by the end of the night. So I pretended nothing had happened and went to bed. Upon waking up, I checked my desk, avoided missing roll call, then took a curious peek to see what the morning reset had in store, until I was suddenly jumped for being curious. This resulted in me running while shooing away the aggressive inmate to be at peace. Bro, go away. Fucking loser. With that problem sorted, I picked up some materials to regain what I had lost. And then it was time to face my nightmares. But first, I had to clock in for breakfast as well as do some more looting and dropping off. Then it was time to stalk Officer Red while maintaining my distance. Since I was forced to battle in a tight space, I fought my way out and was rewarded with some new drip and a plastic key. At this point the guards were on high alert, so it was crucial to blend in, especially when using the plastic key to unlock the guards area. I first searched the contraband desk and found nothing of use, then the kitchen and also found nothing of use. No gloves, no feathers, what? So I took the flight of stairs into the guards' living quarters, and lo and behold, a pair of gloves. This was all that was found, so after searching the warden's desk, I went home to craft a pair of gauntlets. With only a feather left on the list, I used the grappling hook to climb onto the 6th floor, only to find nothing but scraps at the end. To keep myself motivated, I moved on to craft some putty and molten plastic before heading to bed. The next day I spent my free time lurking in the shadows and keeping an eye on Officer Green, until it was time to lay my hands on him. After I did the old switcheroo and crafted a plastic green key, I laid back and watched Officer Green get carried out on a stretcher. And while at peace, I was caught slacking again, but this time I was prepared. So with the green key, I headed outside towards the horseshoe making building to acquire one molten metal, which would be used to create a shiny sword. And back to locating a feather, I essentially searched everywhere I could think of until I got what I wanted. There we go. I finally crafted the helmet, stored it safely in my desk, stashed away the keys in the bathroom, then sprinted upstairs to increase my strength to 90. And let the grind commence. When I got tired, the only way to replenish my energy was to take a shower, and thus the cycle would be repeated several times. We are close. 20 more intellect. Shit, never mind. 23, 27, 26 more strength. As soon as 90 strength was hit, it was off to the races. This was where I grabbed every armor piece, including the sword, and carried them all the way up to the 5th floor to set up the escape. Leaves, chest, arms, hat, sword. Well, let's go, Saibao! After becoming a knight in shining armor, Saibao unleashed his forbidden techniques to bend the will of others until no one was left standing, apart from the warden, as he was needed to lower the gate for Saibao to exit the scene in Hollywood fashion. With his speed proven to the world, this marks the end for Saibao, and by adding together every prison escape, we have a final time of 6 hours, 16 minutes and 40 seconds, which puts us somewhere at the top of the leaderboards.